Welcome to episode 3 of this series where I talk about environmental and Indigenous issues in Canada. Mental illnesses are real. I don't know how much to enunciate that phrase. We live in a society where anytime we feel down, it's because of the phone. What most parents don't realize is that it's not always the phone. Sometimes it could be schoolwork, sometimes it could be peers, and sometimes it could be you. Mental illnesses are real, especially in the Indigenous community. Since the time the settlers came and built the residential schools, most individuals who identify as Indigenous have had a rough time. From their land and children being stolen to their identities and cultures, Indigenous folks had to go through a lot. During that time period, most of them developed mental illnesses and addictions. Now, probably know what you're thinking at this point. Why don't they just reach out? That's the problem. Since most Indigenous folks live in reserves which are farther away from the urban population, it is much, and I mean much, harder to find clinics that offer mental support. That's why Indigenous folks, especially youths, are more likely to fall under some mental illness and at the most, suicide. We all know, especially the younger generation, that mental illness is important. Yes, 100% it is. But when it comes to who has the mental illness, then it becomes a different topic. According to Global News, approximately 46% of Indigenous women and 32% of Indigenous men have had some related mental illness problem. Now, keep in mind that Indigenous communities make up about 16% of Canada's population. Normally, when we feel down, our parents or yourself might book an appointment with a nearby therapist, and that's that. Nearby. That word is the word we need to pay more attention to. Like I said, most Indigenous communities live on reserves where access to clinics is limited. So, because these clinics are limited, how would natives be able to heal themselves when they're not feeling okay? Well, the answer is through ceremonies and practices that were once banned by the settlers. Indigenous communities like to perform ceremonies, songs, and prayers to heal themselves. On top of that, they also like to do talking circles to strengthen the bond between other clan members. But even with these practices, some Indigenous folks are still drowned in an illness. So, what is the reason for this? Well, it would be that Indigenous folks simply don't have what we call the spirit or the energy to perform these practices. Like I have said before, Native communities have had it rough, their land and practices being taken to their children being taken, and as such, these hereditary genes pass on to the next generation. Just like how health conditions such as diabetes or anemia can be passed down to our kids. So, what can you do? Well, you can take to social media and spread awareness of this ongoing issue, especially since we're in a COVID pandemic. Well, that's it for today. I know it was a short episode, but I'll see you next week.